2005 is an iconic wrestling year, defined by the coronation of WWE's new top babyfaces, as well as some historic greatness from Pro Wrestling Noah. It's a sweet spot for independent wrestling's golden generation too, even bleeding into TNA's eventual emergence on Spike TV. From Samoa Joe to Shawn Michaels, it's a campaign rich with classics. So with that in mind, I rounded up 3 of LNG's finest for a draft celebrating the year, confusing them with extensive rules along the way. Our Grinners will be drafting a male wrestler, a female wrestler, a tag team, a match, and an angle or storyline, which can be anything from a single segment to a match series or individual arc. However, once a wrestler is selected in any fashion, their catalogue is then off the board entirely. Those categories can be selected in any order, depending on the Grinners' priority, but they must make picks that represent WWE, TNA, Ring of Honor, and an international scene of their choice. Once those boxes are ticked, their 5th pick will be a wild card, allowing a 2nd pick from any of the above. Some wrestlers will overlap differing promotions or require judgment calls, but the Grinners have agreed that in those cases, common sense shall prevail. Will that work? Well, we're relying on the moral compass of the LNG roster, so what's the worst that can happen? Let's get started, fellas. Let's talk 2005. A year that I knew was great in pro wrestling history, but to be honest, doing the kind of research for this, research is generous, but looking at this a little bit, I really became to even appreciate further how deep the kind of iconic wrestling moments from 2005, matches, moments, stories, all of the above. I'm going to cover a lot of them today, but before we do that, I'm intrigued as to where everyone was at. I think I have a pretty good feeling on this. I think there's going to be an expert among us in terms of experiencing this in real time. Buster, how old were you in 2005, and were you watching professional wrestling?
So, for most of 2005, I was 4 years old.
Excellent. Look, Alex.
The good news is this was the year I started watching wrestling, though. So, I kind of had a good. I don't have any real memories from it. I was, again,
right,
developing cognitively, I guess. But, yeah, I was probably like shitting my pants a lot or something. Probably crying. Hating JBL for sure. That's like basically the gist as far as wrestling goes. That's basically it. Yeah.
I was no veteran either, to be fair. I would have been, I turned 8 in 2005, which every person watching this right now that doesn't watch the Late Night Grin already is like, oh Jesus, what's happened to this poor guy?
I think I'm older than you, Miles.
What month for you, Benny?
March.
Yeah. You're the real vet here, bro. Are you watching?
So you were not 7 because I typed my age into the age calculator. So I was 7, so you must have been like 6 or.
What are you talking about? It's years. The months don't change. It's years, isn't it? If think about it, you're 97, right?
98.
You're not young. You're younger than me then, because I'm September 97. All right, never mind.
You always told me you're older.
I am older than you. You're younger than me.
No, you always told me you're younger than me.
Did I?
Yeah.
He's always said y'all are the same age.
We haven't drafted one wrestler yet, and Manny has already got me sweating bullets. Manny, were you watching any wrestling in 2005?
I'm sure I was, it was like, I can't, I can't think of the top of my head of what was going on, but found out if you can't remember stuff from your childhood, it's just because of trauma or something, write that online. So the only thing I can remember probably is like a lot of Batista, Flair.
Yeah. And to be clear, you're not tying Batista to that trauma. To be clear, no. Okay. Just want to make clear that Dave's got a reputation to uphold. The other guy less so. Contrarian Alex, by contrast, I feel you were in the thick of things here in 2005, brother.
It's the year I graduated high school and started my freshman year at the University of North Texas. Yes, 2005 was an interesting year of when I was still finishing high school. I watched Monday Night Raw every week. As soon as I got to college, though, WWE went out the window. But this was also when I was firmly ensconced in TNA, Ring of Honor, and Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. And I don't know if that makes me, back then it was kind of like the niche cool thing, with the message boards and stuff, and whatnot. But now, like, anyone who defiantly says they don't watch WWE sounds like a bit of an asshole. So things were it was a different time. So much so that Raw Homecoming at the American Airlines Center in Dallas, I went with flyers to promote TNA's debut on Spike TV.
That's godly.
Tremendous. And I think that captures the time a little bit, right? Go on, Alex, what were you going to say?
No, yeah, definitely. It was 2005 was the period of 04 to 06 for American independent wrestling is a bit unrivaled. And in fear of spoilers, even our friends at Combat Zone Wrestling might come up this evening, because they were, for what they were doing was pretty solid. And the World Wrestling Federation was in an extremely transformative time. Joe, we talked about this not too long ago on Tough 20 this was the first time in years and in many arguable senses since that they went in a completely new direction with two new headliners that they were going to sculpt the company around. So the wrestling business in general, and TNA, to their credit, this is the year they scored a big, a defector. And so the thought was that the sky was the limit for them. So, we know what we know now with a lot of things that happen with these companies, but 2005 was a crazy year for professional wrestling domestically, and to say nothing of, what was going on overseas.
For sure, yeah, and WWE is an interesting one because you mentioned the kind of new baby faces at the top of the company. Obviously, like any WWE year after like 2000, it's complicated, and there are some elements that it wasn't exactly critically acclaimed in every which way. But I think looking back on it, there's a lot of strong stuff produced by WWE, as well as, of course, the surrounding companies you talked about. So certainly many things to choose from. And Buster, fair to say, when you go to Japan here in 2005, I mean, wow. There is some big business taking place, right?
Interesting times, because most of the big business is happening in Noah, which is, very, very young at this age, at this time at least. But you look outside of that, and New Japan's not like, they're not on the verge of death, but it's not looking awesome.
Yeah.
And then Joshi is like, All Japan Women's still around, but it's dark ages. There's still some like really cool shit happening if
right.
you can manage the visuals of the show, I guess. But still a lot of awesome stuff going on.
Yeah, it's that part of tonight's draft is interesting, right? The women's wrestling part.
Mm-hmm.
It's in our free US companies, it is terribly underrepresented. I mean, this is the year where Trish Stratus is like absent as champion for 6 months, and they just don't even bother to strip her because who cares? This is that year. The TNA Knockouts division is yet to come to fruition. Ring of Honor is not. That's so
I don't know if
States,
Gail Kim had any matches in 05. I remember
I'll tell you right now, she doesn't.
Yeah.
That's
there goes one of Manny's names on the big board.
She was a great valet for Planet Jarrett, that stable they had, but it was she was not wrestling.
So that certainly stands out as you kind of survey the scene. And also, Buster, to your point, Noah in 2005 and in this era feels like it has a bigger grip on the public than any Japanese promotion has had in the 20 years since, quite frankly. I mean, the Tokyo Dome houses and such. Good lord.
Yeah, easily so. A lot of the shows are like, they have the like, what I'm looking for? Like, just the vibe of
Mystique.
Like the mystique of those like early 90s All Japan shows. Like, they like carried over like seamlessly. It's
right.
But there was still like that, like a modern twist on it, because she had like the juniors with Kenta and Marufuji and all of them like just tearing it up. And then you had like the ROH guys come in eventually, and it was a whole new thing. It was awesome.
To kind of piggyback on that, I think it's worth calling out here early because modern fans, and youngins like yourself may not be used to this idea of this was still in a time too when the fellas from Noah came over to the United States to work, they had a reputation to uphold. And I think
Right.
a famous example of that is to not spoil anything for 05, but we'll go back to Final Battle. That was 05, excuse me. Yeah. So when Kenta came in to work Loki, and like you just think of examples, and there's a bigger one that I'm sure is going to come up here tonight of fellas coming over with a reputation to uphold. Whereas, as much as fun as it is, I would say that Kazuchika Okada's Ring of Honor bookings in 2017 didn't reflect what these guys did back in 2005.
Boys, there can only be one here, and there will be snake order on this. So
I'm very mad nobody said anything, but man,
oh god,
my lineup, bro, is fucking crazy, bro. I didn't realize it was. It's like
pick up the pace, man. Let's go.
Contrarian needs a late surge here, to say the least.
Shit.
Good lord, this is it's a free Grinner race here, folks. Oh, look at up there, charging
second place,
in.
baby, second place.
Dude, I'm up there working
look
like
at poor Alex up there.
2025 Nakamura up there, man.
He's like Halliburton just tore a cramp or something, bro. That's what
Tore a cramp.
I want to let him finish the race, There you go, folks. All right.
So as we get started here, I just want to put on record, I will be astonished if the first pick isn't what I think it is. So we'll see.
You're going to be astonished.
Uh-oh.
Okay. You're going to be astonished because here's what I'm thinking. Firstly, I'm a venomous man. But I also think there's some fun to be had here. I think there are a lot of great matches.
Yeah.
And the match you're thinking of is not necessarily the match that I most want on my team, even though it's a classic match between the two wrestlers that, we're being honest, you think of most with 2005.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great matches, but there is only one wrestler that I want to represent me for 2005. And he is one of those two wrestlers. For that reason, I'm going to be spiteful. I'm going to be venomous. I'm just going to take Samoa Joe and take all of that goodness off the board and see what you guys do in response. Now, what's key about that is that means some Kobashi classics stay in the game, right? Which is interesting. But let's talk for a moment about Samoa Joe, my personal all-time favorite. And I think it's fair to say that is the crown jewel in his catalog. 2005 Samoa Joe. Alex, a force of nature of which we really may have never seen replicated since. It was special, wasn't it?
It absolutely was. And the funny thing about it is he started the year having just lost the Ring of Honor title after his near 2-year title run. Fantastic match. They lost it as well. And he was the cock of the walk, the talk of the town, any, expression you would like to use. And in the course of 6 months within 2005, had 3 matches that are regularly brought up in the discussion of greatest matches of all time. He was still touring the Indies. We just talked about this on our Grin Along last week, talking about the match in Philadelphia he had before One Night Stand. And that week later, he debuted in TNA, and he had great matches. He had a banger with Chris Sabin on pay-per-view there. And then, of course, would go on to work AJ Styles, and another famed match that is now unfortunately off the board, the triple threat with AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels. And
yes,
one of the last times a pro wrestler truly seemed mythical.
Yeah, indeed. And it should be noted, and this is kind of the fun thing about the way this is set up, right? In terms of category, I have a little bit of freedom with a Samoa Joe pick because he represents 2 of our categories. So I can be a little bit, I can play a little dangerously with this here. I've got Ring of Honor or TNA, depending on what I need. Buster, are you surprised I didn't just take the Kobashi match, brother?
No, I'm not going to lie. It makes sense. I was going to ask you like a minute ago if this was for ROH or TNA, and I knew your answer was going to be, we'll see. So it makes sense when you think about it.
Common sense prevails with these things, right? So if someone was to pick Kenta Kobashi next, I think it would be a little ridiculous to go, that's my Ring of Honor pick, right? But in Joe's case, he truly was representative of, obviously, as Alex said, he shows up halfway through TNA. By the end of 2005, Samoa Joe is integral to TNA. So I think in some cases, we're going to have guys that fit right in the middle with it. So it's an interesting one. Manny, I know Kobashi and Joe, that match in particular is one that's very important to your fandom, fair to say, right?
Yeah, it was, but I have another Kobashi pick, man, So
All right. We'll see what it was. Calm it down. Okay, I hear you. We'll get to that in a moment. But it's probably still. I guess you'd say it's still generally Joe's signature match, right? The Kobashi match.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, it has to be.
Yeah,
Man, I remember watching that match with my grandpa. Fucking love that shit. You know, and it's actually my first WrestlePeers article too.
Yeah,
that went crazy too. I remember
that.
I remember editing. That was really, really cool. That was a huge match for your fan. I think it was a huge match for a lot of people. And of course, Alex, as you'll recall, they made the decision, right? The crowd was so hot. No commentary for that one. They just let the people do the talking. And it's, I mean, a magical occasion for sure.
In the age of companies don't do that anymore.
Yeah, I tend to agree.
Mamma mia. In the age of streaming, I think it's hard for some people to grasp also. On Twitter all the time I mentioned I had to wait months to see this.
Yeah.
Gabe got many cases of Mountain Dew and got in the editing bay for a weekend after that show. And that show happened on October 1st of 2005. And I believe by 2 weeks later at the live events, it was being sold at the merchandise stands. The biggest thing for me is I remember Christmas morning that was under the tree was the Joe Kobashi DVD.
That's fucking awesome, dude.
I like to think of Gabe in the early days of Ring of Honor, just sitting in a director's chair in a dark room, just sitting down, like he's watching all these different tapes of Ring of Honor, just like, how do I edit it this way? And
to speak to how big a match that was, that event was literally just called Joe versus Kobashi, right? No gimmick needed there, brother.
I think he had like a Scorsese moment or a Tarantino moment where he just sluts in his chair and says, "No commentary, nothing. We're gonna just take everything out and." That's the name of the show and all that, you know.
I think it legitimately sold something like 10,000 copies, which at that time is unheard of.
It was a DVD
big
product,
business.
Alex.
Yeah,
it was a DVD product.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but yeah, it's definitely like one of the signature Samoa Joe matches. But right alongside it, the aforementioned Unbreakable triple threat, which Buster to this day has a huge deal of significance. I mean, Will Ospreay, that's like his match, right? That's the one he always talks about. So that, I think, we're actually still figuring out how influential that was. Unbreakable would have been a great number one pick. Kind of how much did that change the game, do you think, Buster?
I mean, it clearly opened the eyes of like a bunch of not so like uber in shape kids, clearly, because like those three guys, they're not.
Right. AJ was pretty jacked, but they're not like body guys, right?
But they're not, he's not super tall or anything. It's short, like a revolutionary match. Like just it's on my list, obviously, but all the shit they did was just unbelievable. For
sure. And it main evented too, which was an outlier. And I mean, honestly, it went well enough. It shouldn't have been an outlier for much longer, but these are the games TNA plays. A classic for sure. Necro Butcher, as we mentioned, another Samoa Joe match from 2005 that, you know, what is there left to say about? But yeah, I think 2005 is the greatest year in his career. It's, if you were arguing for his all-time standing, bell to bell, it would be the centerpiece of your argument, right? It would be the main point of that case.
That's also the year of the Manhattan show where he and Jay Lethal wrestle Homicide and Low-Ki, right? Is that, and also we got to give a shout out too. It gets lost in the shadow, understandably so. The tag match with Joe and Low-Ki against Homicide and Kobashi is fucking fantastic.
Amazing match, amazing match. So yeah, Samoa Joe, genuinely, if you were doing like a Mount Rushmore of wrestlers' individual years, Samoa Joe 2005, I think, earns a spot on that Mount Rushmore. If you're doing Mount Rushmore talk on this glorious project, I think it would earn a spot there. So.
There was really quickly.
Yeah.
Gabe went on to the Observer while they were watching some kind of fucking TNA show. And he was talking about how the plan was they weren't going to run the tag match. It was going to be Low-Ki versus Kobashi in a singles match.
My God.
And then they decided to add, Joe in there, Homicide in there for star power. Imagining Low-Ki and Kobashi is like, the tag match is awesome, but God, I wish.
It would have been amazing, yeah. I mean, Low-Ki may come up again later, but at this point, he is like one of the most gifted professional wrestlers the Myers have ever seen. So he may come up down the line. We shall see. First pick on the board. I'm taking Samoa Joe as my male wrestler. Manny the Hooper. Where are you going here, brother?
I'm gonna keep it in this kind of general direction. I'm gonna go with Kent. I'm gonna go with the match. Actually,
Oh, always doubting himself. He's
no, I was gonna go with the match. I don't know why I don't know why I was phrasing it. I was gonna pick an individual wrestler. The match is from 7/18/05. Noah Destiny. I'm gonna go Kobashi versus Sasaki.
Nice.
Which I guess for someone that has a rough awareness of the famed matches in Japanese wrestling history, but doesn't necessarily have the dates down to the names, the ultimate chop match, fair to say, Manny,
Yeah.
right?
The ultimate beef fest. I mean, that's just what it's an incredible match in a beautiful stadium, and just two amazing pro wrestlers going at it. It's just, and then obviously their chop the chop fest at the chops in the corner, the most iconic part is always on Twitter all the time.
It is. It's probably one of the most clipped up matches of that era.
And it's probably one of Kobashi's really, it's like his final good year before he starts winding down.
Yeah.
So I think it's also an important time too.
I certainly would agree, and I think we were just talking about Joe versus Kobashi. I don't think you can understate how much kind of the buzz from matches like that added such mystique to him coming to the stage. I mean, obviously, by this point, Kobashi has over a decade of that, classic work behind him. But I think by 2005, he was probably at his height in terms of like the hardcore fan in the States being aware.
And the fact that he's still doing it at a high level, not in all Japan, he's doing it in Noah.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a chance that another pillar comes up, I think, tonight, but certainly of the four pillars by 2005, Kobashi is the one seed without question. I think it's fair to say. Buster, any memories of that match? Certainly, I mean, incredibly physical, and I think iconic is a fair word for the visuals that produced.
I believe that is the very first match I watched when I was starting to learn about the iconic 2005 Kobashi run. And it was like full blown like Kings Road guy at that point. So all the chops, I think a legitimate feeling I had after watching that was like it's one of my favorite matches of all time. I don't know if that's the way it is now. I haven't watched it since then, but it had that effect on me because it's so of its time,
Well, I do think it's important to note that it's a match that's great enough that no matter how many people try and replicate it, I actually think it will always have the same value.
Yeah.
Because there's something to it's less, the physicality is great, but it's more that defiance that they both sport, right? That sort of, the personality that comes with it, I think, is really the key to that thing. It feels like a matter of pride. It's very, very special for sure.
Yeah. This is the first time, this is also one of the first matches that I was getting into right after I got back into wrestling, like right after high school. And I'm going to shout out the account. The guy doesn't upload anymore because he passed away, but Real Hero, one of the most important accounts, like me getting into wrestling after I was out of it for so long, because all the Noah matches that he uploaded were just incredible and all that. And I still think the YouTube channel is up. I'm not too sure, but yeah.
It's a big one. A Tokyo Dome match too. We mentioned about Noah's success. That's one of those dome matches, right? With 60,000 in attendance, whatever it may have been. Big one for sure. Alex, any memories, any points to make regarding Sasaki and Kobashi here?
Honestly, all the words of artistry all have shared so far. The main thing I remember about that match is it was like at dusk, so the dome roof is still kind of like transparent, and it gets darker as the match goes on, and I've always found that to be quite cinematic. That's one of the main things I remember about that match, honestly.
Okay, we have a match on the board. Kenta Kobashi and all of his greatness of 2005 is wiped away. So him and Joe, still pretty much, it didn't take long, right? One extra pick. To get
that's what I did too. I felt like it was kind of poetic, Yeah. You didn't take the match, but they still win 1 and 2,
You're big on poetry, man. I love that, baby. Beautiful stuff. All right. Buster, you're up, brother.
I'm going to take another match. We watched this not long ago, but I feel like it is the correct pick for me. My favorite match of all time was Sato Tanaka and Mike Awesome, ECW One Night Stand, 2005.
Nice.
I believe this was the first time I ever watched either guy years ago. I mean, like, I was like 18, so
Right. So it was a couple
7
weeks
years
back.
ago. Fuck. Yeah, I mean, I said this on the show, but there's a lot of beauty to be found in Mike Awesome coming back after not wrestling for over a year, going, I'm going to show these fuckers who I was. He had my favorite match of all time, one of the better matches of his career, and just, you know, I think it's very, I mean, the word cinematic is overused, but it's like, it is like a movie for him, you know? He's like, he's not all there, like, physically at all, but he's just willing it into existence, dude.
Short hair, just a guy, a guy named Mike.
It looks like he looks like a fucking realtor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's back in '99 for one night only, brother.
He's back in the Manhattan Center. He's gonna do business. It's fucking awesome.
It's amazing, and it must be said, it's a very sentimental pick on your part. Not because the match isn't great. The match is great, but neither guy. You're not doing a lot of blocking with that, but you're just saying straight up, I want this match on my team. You know, because
I mean,
which you have to respect that.
Yeah, I feel like it's the correct pick for my soul.
I tend to agree, actually. I tend to agree. Alex, you were with us watching that on the aforementioned Grin Along. Man, it's one of those matches you could watch that 100 times over, and you're still on 101 going to go, oh my God, a few times, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. It was fun watching that with a couple people that had never seen it before. But yeah, it's, you know, they have one of the more storied underground rivalries in wrestling history, and that Buster was one that smartened me up to that. That was his last match, man. So it adds a certain level of warmth.
Yeah.
Warmth is a bit dramatic, but I would say, you know, watching it back, and especially because it is such violence that they like the chair shots to the head and shit and whatnot, and it's just like it's the fact that I could say, you know, there's warmth to that match shows, you know, that's only something like any one of us sickos would understand what I mean by that. But yeah, it's a special match, and it's, you know, we talk about it won JBL over, so
yeah. True.
The highest praisable.
Not Stevie Richards.
No, can't win them all. It is very Buster too that he's WWE pick. He gets on the board with maybe the least WWE match they ever hosted. You know, maybe it's possible. So there's pretty something to be said for that too. Manny, awesome. Tanaka, this has got a Manny the Hooper flavor to it. This one, fair to say, right?
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, I think I've seen this match when I was younger. Because I remember when I watched it when I was older, like I had a weird, like, nostalgic feeling of watching it. I think I had the DVD because I used to have a few WWE DVDs, and this is one of them. And I kind of remember just vaguely doing a lot of the cool things that they did in that match to my brothers. And you know,
brother.
Yeah, like, just imagine a big guy like me just running and diving on my brothers and stuff like that, full speed and stuff like that. I mean, it's just a cool event, you know, like it's like a nostalgic feeling, and like it's such a weird match to happen on a WWE programming.
Yeah, it is. That whole show, I think, fits that description, but that is certainly chief among the reasons why. Certainly, it's a classic, no doubt. Great pick for Buster. Get him rolling here. Contrarian Alex, you now have yourself a double pick, brother. So where are we going first here? Close out round one.
Yeah, I do have a double pick, and there's two things I'm not going to let slide any further. I'm going to start off with my angle, my storyline of 2005. And as much as it pains me to give one of these guys credit in the year of our Lord 2025, brother, the Batista Triple H angle.
Yep.
It's got to be said. It bred a star, not only of wrestling, but an actual bona fide movie star. And it's the last time Triple H really made anybody, so that's significant also. And, you know, even, oh, man, it feels kind of silly sitting here and talking and saying that 20 years ago was the last time the WWF really exhibited any amount of true patience in something. and with both John Cena, but especially this Batista thing, because if you want to be one of those people that reads into teasers and whatnot, it was building for 4 or 5 months before he actually turned on him, and they have this is something now that it seems they do weekly. But there was that title match, I don't remember which one, that Batista helped Triple H win, and when he raised his hand, Batista's gaze went up to the title, but not in like a way of like, oh, look what he's doing. It was like you kind of have to be paying attention. And then the Elimination Chamber where Batista cleans house and comes face to face with Triple H, and Triple H, and then the whole thing of Triple H setting up a scenario to make it seem like Batista should want to face JBL, and then of course one of the all-time closings to Raw ever, and we talked about that also recently. Joe did like over 5 million viewers because people wanted to see what was going to happen. Wow. And in the match itself at WrestleMania, they went on later in the year to have a better match. Their Hell in a Cell is truly great.
Awesome.
But the match at WrestleMania accomplished what it needed to, and I think honestly, if you asked anybody what the angle of 05 in the WWF was, they would immediately say that.
I would agree, and I think you also have to get credit for the extension to the feud, which culminates with that Hell in a Cell match, which I think is one of the best Triple H and certainly the best Batista matches. That match is a classic, I think, from Vengeance, I believe. So, it's that angle, and then it's the whole feud that follows. I think, that's absolutely a great pick.
Joe, you're right. The Hell in a Cell is great, and it has, to me, one of the more just visually violent finishes in the history of not just the WWF, but wrestling, because if you remember, the finish is set up by Triple H coming off the top rope, and Batista holds up the sledgehammer, and Triple H's face hits it, and he comes up spitting up blood. And it's
a fucking awesome visual. It's so sick.
And we talked about this on the One Night Stand Grin Along. A lot of their influence in that match was they were bitter about the praise that One Night Stand was getting. So it's like, we'll show these boys how to do hardcore.
It's matches like that just make me wonder why Triple H didn't lean into doing more of the hardcore stuff, because most of it is fucking awesome. Like the stuff that he did is infinitely better than his fucking Harley Race cosplay,
Yeah, this doesn't necessarily have to make air. Buster, have you ever seen the Kevin Nash Triple H Hell in a Cell?
I don't think so.
You're gonna think I'm joking. You have to watch that because it's what you're saying. There's a part where Triple H takes a screwdriver to Nash's face, and it's one of the only matches I remember Nash blading in, but it's old school, just brutal violence. There's barbed wire and
man,
they don't leave the cell, right? Which was Nash's big thing.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch that shit.
There's a hammer involved and shit. Yeah,
of course. And Buster, such a strong angle. I don't know if you saw this, but they recently got an action figure set out of this. Did you see this by any chance?
Like the turtleneck,
dude. We need the image on the screen. One of the funniest looking. Paul has this big shirt that's soft.
Fuck.
The face.
Holy, why is it so big?
I don't know. It's
also Batista's hair. Good lord.
Yeah, it's catastrophic, dude. They got it wrong.
Oh my god.
Alex, your second pick, mate.
So that takes WWE off the board, and I'm going to move along to my TNA pick. And if I'm going to do a TNA pick, it might as well be Mr. TNA. I'm going to take AJ Styles in 2005. My initial thought was I was going to take the AJ Styles, Chris Sabin, Petey Williams Ultimate X match, or the AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels 30-minute Iron Man match from Against All Odds. But AJ, he won the X Division title that year. He won the NWA title that year because that was still under the TNA umbrella. He obviously did a lot of things outside of TNA, be it the Ring of Honor matches he had, or he might have even been PWG champion in 05. But AJ Styles' legacy right now is obviously firmly cemented from his, contention of all time singular year wrestler had with his IWGP run in New Japan after he left TNA, and what he's done in the WWE since. He still kind of means something. He won the WWE title in less than a year than being in the company, and he's wrestled at several WrestleManias, main evented pay-per-views, etc., etc. He's beaten John Cena. I fear because of that, some people forget what the word phenomenal is. Not a moniker. He was that dude in 03, 04, 05, 06. AJ Styles was, if you had never seen, I'm an example. I watched wrestling my entire life, from the age of 3 onward. And I remember the first time I saw AJ Styles, my brain almost rejected it because it was like, I don't understand what's happening. Like, I had never seen anybody like that before. And, he would be the first one to admit it, which is funny because he's gotten really good at it. Alan wasn't the best at promos there early in his career. And 05 is when he really started putting it all together. That's when he got the traps going and shit, when he would do his pose and stuff. And, again, all those dudes at that time too, their gear was really shindy. But 05 was the year that AJ looked like a bona fide professional wrestling superstar. And he had the match catalog that year to back it up as well. We already mentioned the triple threat. I mentioned the 2 matches I had.
Abyss,
one of Bobby O'Neill's favorite, the Lockdown 05 main event. He had, I think it was in the summer, that match with Roderick in Ring of Honor that people regularly clip the finish of, that insane but of course those 2 guys had a fucking killer match leading into that. But for the purposes of TNA, because that's where my pick is going, it was overwhelmingly apparent in the year 2005, even with the way we end with Samoa Joe, AJ Styles was the face of TNA. And it, of course, makes it sad, kind of the way that story played out, but I can't think of a better person to pick for my TNA wrestler.
Yeah, certainly. I agree with you too, that I think AJ is so great in 2014, 2015, in 2016 and beyond. I do think this is forgotten as like a genuine, kind of prime for him there. He was, physically, this is certainly his peak, right? You mentioned the frame, how explosive he is. He's actually, I think, a very different wrestler here than what he becomes in those later years with Bullet Club. But this is one of his 2 primes, if that makes sense. He's one of those guys who's that great, right? He has 2 differing primes, this being the first of them.
It's more impressive because he was less than a decade into the game. And if you watch his matches in 05, just like the smoothness and seamlessness that he has, all-time great.
For sure. Boys, anything we want to add in terms of AJ Styles? Anything? I think that pretty much covered it perfectly, right? Okay, give me 1 second. I just want to make sure of something here.
Joe, do you know who the special guest referee was when he won the NWA title, when he beat Jarrett for it?
T. Ortiz.
Yeah.
I can see the DVD cover in my fucking head, dude. All right. Tremendous. So Alex is going to take us at round 2 with AJ Styles as his male wrestler. Very strong pick indeed. Buster, you're up, brother. What you thinking?
I'm going to follow in the footsteps of Alex, and I'm going to take my male wrestler. I'm going to go to ROH, take CM Punk, because, again, another spiritual pick for me, but also the entire summer of Punk is huge for him. It's also, he has the Aries match, the Jimmy Rave stuff is fantastic this year. The Bryan Danielson 2 out of 3 falls, I think that's an FIP. Awesome fucking match. This is the year he leaves ROH, and the big, signing the title or signing the contract on the title. All that stuff is like iconic for me as, a kid growing up, especially watching the CM Punk documentary and seeing all that footage for the first time. I was just like blown away by it. Look at the flag, brother. Look at the flag.
I think there's some good stuff in developmental too, I think, which is crazy.
I'm like, OVW is like an entire blind spot for me. I haven't seen like a single, I've seen like the John Cena, like Brock and that, all that shit, but
right.
Nothing like too in depth really.
I could be wrong on this. I think he has some stuff that have got like observer buzz and got star ratings and stuff. Yeah.
I'm gonna do that because any stuff that I haven't seen of CM Punk at this point, and my wrestling fandom, I'm very, very intrigued. Yeah,
for sure.
He had that 60-minute draw with Delirious also.
He did do that.
Notably, Buster took CM Punk as his wrestler, did not take the Summer of Punk angle. So that's a big angle off the ball. But that was, I think, one of the lead candidates for angle for all of us. So big one. CM Punk, we just about AJ Styles, talk about Samoa Joe. It has to be noted, we're 20 years removed, and these fellas are still making headlines. Every other week there'll be a story about one of these three guys. And often the story is they just had a hell of a pro wrestling match. So remarkable, really, the longevity of that golden generation of independent stars only makes sense they're being represented here in our 2005 draft. Manny, your pick, brother, go for it.
Man, I think I kind of fucked on this next one, man. I don't really because if I pick, I realized I kind of fucked myself with this going international with the first pick, because then I was like, fuck, all my tag teams were international. So just like I'm just looking at my list. I'm like, man, what? I kind of put myself in a bind.
Amateur mistake, Hooper.
Yeah.
Amateur mistake. He's in a bind, folks. Second pick, Manny the Hooper, in a bind.
I think with my second pick, I'm gonna go.
Do you want the Bashams? Do you want the Bashams, bro? You can have the Bashams.
No,
Take
I'm gonna
Team
go,
Canada.
I mean, I don't want to pretend like I don't know who they, you know. I'm gonna go with Fed here, and I'm gonna go with Kurt Angle, the Olympic hero. You know.
The Olympic hero, Kurt Angle, headed to Team Hooper.
Yeah, I mean, this during 05, what he had is what I thought was a legendary WrestleMania match with Shawn.
Yeah.
His matches with
Rematches.
Booker,
Yeah.
and then his match with Rey Mysterio too. I mean, all his matches with Rey Mysterio are good too, but there's just
the match
it just stood out to me.
The match in Japan with Ray he has too, right? Which is really sweet. Buster, I know you just watched that one. You rewatched that one recently, right? It's a beautiful TV match.
It's awesome. I mean, just visually, the show
Yeah.
itself, but also, I mean, you know, the stuff.
I read some stats about that too. They had 18K in that stadium.
Hang on a second, man. He's bringing box office numbers.
My God.
This is
Yeah, they had then on the Raw the night before they had 16K.
Oh, so you're giving Kurt the pop for that one. Okay, I see what you're
Yeah.
doing here. Okay, I see where your preparation went. Kurt Angle, he does take those Shawn Michaels matches, and that is, certainly would have been a candidate for the story or angle or rivalry, right? That was certainly a famed series of contests. Kurt Angle, I think, again, spiritually, the right pick for Manny. Fair to say, boys. I'm going to take my Angle. I'm also going to go to WWE. I'm going to take the one thing that, as ridiculous as it got, and as silly as it could be, the one thing that I feel rivals Batista and Triple H. It's not the same. And I get it didn't, have the same value in terms of making a star. But Eddie and Ray had a truly unique piece of business in 2005. And I just said it didn't make a star. Dominic Mysterio done pretty good at it, didn't he? He's still rocking that thing. So it was ridiculous. Could anyone else have pulled it off? Maybe not. But I think it can't be overstated how much that absolutely carried SmackDown there into it. While Batista was getting his feet under him as the first time as world champion, Eddie and Ray, they had some terrific matches. Lest we forget the TV match they have on SmackDown in June, I believe it is, which is one of the great TV matches of that decade.
The cage match,
Yeah, the cage match. The SummerSlam match is, not their finest work, but there's still a great deal of spectacle to it because, of course, there is. Look at the stakes. It's a ridiculous match. And I do think, it speaks to how great Eddie was that with the benefit of hindsight, you can look back on some of the stuff and you can see physically him deteriorating. There's no question about that. But I also think our beloved Oracle of Wrestling often says it. He was still the best guy in the company for much of 2005, especially when he had nights where he was on. I mean, there's a Kurt Angle TV match. We were talking about Kurt a moment ago. All of the stuff, him and Ray are a team for a while there, obviously setting up the feud. And the biggest thing this feud kind of speaks to is Eddie was able to make himself a hated heel just a year after being the most beloved babyface. One of the great wrestling pairings, certainly wrestling soulmates. Their 2005 feud, I think, did a great job of showing the range of both parties. Because, look, we talk about Eddie a lot because he was the more, ridiculous part of that equation. I think Ray showed his ability to be in these kind of angles, these dramatic angles that paid off. And we saw, just about Dom. You saw a similar side of Ray in that Dom feud in 2022, 2023, right? So I love that stuff. Maybe even a guilty pleasure, I guess you could argue. But I don't think there's anything guilty about seeing Eddie and Ray wrestle. So that'll be my WWE pick, and that'll be my Angle for 2005.
They worked matches at WrestleMania and SummerSlam, the two biggest shows of the year, with completely different dynamics.
There you go. But you're not wrong. Completely different dynamics. And I know the Mania match disappointed people a little bit at the time. I actually think it's aged very, very gracefully, I must say. Very, very gracefully. A sweet match for sure. It is time for me to take a match. Okay. It's this point in the program that I will take my international pick. Probably my favorite Japanese wrestler of all time is Toshiaki Kawada. I once startled contrarian Alex by telling him he was my favorite pillar. And in February of 2005, he had, to what I believe, and maybe this is unfair to his catalog, but I've always believed it to be certainly among, to me, his last classic, Satoshi Kojima. The end of his final Triple Crown reign. I think it's like an 18-month reign.
500
Kojima.
days. 500 plus days. I mean, I guess you're right, 18 months, but yeah.
Man, he split hairs.
It didn't feel like a big enough difference for you to pick me up on it, but I respect it. You know, you're big on the numbers tonight. I can't argue with that. Kojima winning the Triple Crown, and I think like Kojima wins the IWGP strap like days after this too.
Oh,
right?
Joe, why? Oh my
I'm
God!
not good.
Joe.
Look, I know that match is probably I get it, but
No,
is
that
it
was my
crazy to-
angle, Joe. That was my angle.
All right,
man.
well, you could still. You're the one who revealed that. I didn't say it. I just noted it. I didn't do anything. I'm innocent.
now you put the tea leaves in everybody's ears. You know. Now
The point is, Manny, the point is, it is a defining match and moment for Kojima, who I'm certainly a big fan of. But for me personally, I kind of see it as a swan song for Kawada, you know, in that stature, right? His last Triple Crown. It's the end of his last Triple Crown reign. So that's a classic match. They put a ton of time in. They don't put as much time in as the IWGP title match that follows. I won't talk any more about it unless Manny punches out his webcam. So Kojima, Kawada, two of my favorites for sure. Triple Crown hanging in the balance. All Japan getting some love here in 05. Buster, have you seen this match?
I haven't, and I'm fascinated.
Oh,
by
you'd
this.
love it.
Yeah.
Kawada still has some really good stuff later on, dude.
I don't. I'm sure I have like the early 2000s, but I can't off the top of my head name anything from Kawada's 2000s that I've seen.
Yeah, there's some good stuff.
Weirdly, yeah.
You haven't
His
seen a Cactus Jack
motivation.
match?
I haven't, but that sounds fucking awesome.
His motivation goes up and down, but he does have some really, really good stuff.
Well,
Really, really good
I
stuff.
said that sounds awesome, but
Yeah, it's not
Well.
awesome.
the weird thing is, I remember this match clearly. I remember watching the match, but like, I remember it being awesome, but nothing really stood out to me. You know, it was like an awesome, like,
Yeah.
it's like I don't know. It's like every other match you see now that's pretty good. You know, it's in.
Well, it's very dismissive and aggressive. But what stands out to me is the way the people get with Kojima.
Yeah.
That's the what stands. I mean, I love the match, but I'll say this: it isn't a match that gets like kind of, you know, you see like clipped up all the time online and stuff. So maybe it is a deep cut. Now I don't think it is. I don't know. Maybe we'll find out when people see this. I don't know. But I love the match. I always have. Maybe I just reached, guys. I'm now getting insecure about this pick. Manny has put doubts in my mind. I don't know.
I think most people remember the angle than the match. It's like one of those things, you know.
Yes, you're dying to talk about it. I hope you get this pick, Manny, because you're dying to talk about it. So, with that in mind, I have now picked my male wrestler, my angle or story, I should say, and my match. Manny the Hooper, you're up, brother. Where you going here?
Since I can't pick that yet, you know, I'm gonna.
He wants to do 5 international picks.
No, I mean I can't do that yet because it has to be like a wild card.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm saying, but like every pick you want to do is international. It's possible.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
You need some TNA Ring of Honor, right?
I was actually going indies in general because if I'm mistaken, I don't think Kings of Wrestling wrestled in Ring of Honor.
Mm-mm.
They'd have to be your wild card then, honey.
Yeah, here it didn't. That didn't happen until 06.
That would be a bit aggressive for 05, man.
I'm gonna go with Generation X then. Okay, whatever.
So it's interesting you bring Generation X up
because it's weird because there's 2 teams for them, right? It's
exactly.
You go Roddy or Aries, or you go Roddy and Jack Evans.
Yeah. One of the stories of 2005, I think, is Embassy versus Generation Next. Yeah. Certainly. You could, as the match for the War Games match is a classic. So Strong picks. You're going with Aries and Roddy. You had to pick Aries, man. It was just inevitable, wasn't it? Yeah.
Are you going to the Aries? Oh man.
No, I think this time I'm gonna go with Evans and Strong because
Wow.
if I was looking back at it, like I think they had more matches together as a team, but the matches I think the matches I liked the most were Aries and Strong. You know what I mean? I'm gonna be loyal to what the official team was, not the special team was.
You're a classy fella, man. You really are. Alex Roderick Strong has certainly got one of the premier tag team wrestlers of the past 20 plus years, hasn't he?
Oh God, yes. With Aries, he was great. With Jack, I love the dynamic they had where there were literal like spots that were their trademark spots where they just consisted of Roderick throwing Jack at his opponent. Like it was the coolest shit, man. And Roddy really came into his own in 05 too. He got a lot more confident on the mic, and he's doing spots in TNA by the end of the year in 05 also. And I mean, like, ones of repute. He has that 4-way on Bound for Glory that fucking rules. His run, we talk about how great he is all the time because Joe, he's like one of your and I's favorite wrestlers just as a singles wrestler, but talk about a guy who almost with any partner he's been given has figured out a way to achieve success.
Yeah, and we must, Jack Evans was really in his own way a phenom, really. He was very unique part of this. I don't think people quite appreciate how special he was at that time. So cool to see him getting some love here for sure. Manny the Hooper has got his Ring of Honor pick. He has got his tag team. And I think he's got a hell of a team to boot. So very, very nice pick. Buster, you're up, mate.
I'm going to take my tag team here. I'm going to go TNA. I'm going to be fully transparent. I haven't seen a whole bunch of this team. What I have seen, I love.
Yeah.
I'm going to take America's Most Wanted.
Oh, great pick.
Great pick.
Team Canada stuff is awesome. That's most of what I've seen. Is it Final Resolution 05?
Yes.
Versus, that match is fucking awesome.
Mm-hmm. The Eric Young match as we know it in history.
Yes. That's my main reason for picking them. I'm not gonna lie. It fits the composition of my team perfectly. They're fucking awesome. I love James Storm specifically, and I mean, I'm aware of Chris Harris. He was an awesome worker. James Storm is like a personal favorite of mine, dude. Yep. Gio on Twitter, he posted a James Storm edit to Kenny Chesney. Please go watch it. It's fucking awesome.
We rules, dude. Because Gio's awesome. But
yeah, Gio's great.
We were just talking, Alex, about premier tag team workers of their generation. Yeah. James Storm, welcome to the party, brother. You're in that conversation, right?
You imagine a James Storm Roderick Strong tag team?
I would love to. I could do a whole show about that if you want.
TW.
Yeah, I think it seems like among modern fans, Beer Money is the team they remember. Which I love Beer Money. I probably prefer Beer Money because the shtick they had I thought was very charming.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of diehards will tell you that AMW were the better team, actually, bell to bell. And, that kind of blood and guts nature, that aggression they had. I don't know, Alex, what do you think?
I think the biggest old head hot take I have about TNA is that the best match ever in TNA is still the AMW XXX 6 Sides of Steel cage match where the losing team must disband. Granted, it's one of those matches you have to know a lot of the context going into it. But even if you don't, I mean, everyone and their mother's seen Elix Skipper walk in the cage and shit.
Yeah.
And that match is it's like prior to that, it's a blood and guts old school cage match where they're just beating the shit out of each other. It's good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. AMW, they were a throwback. The kind of team that, you could have imagined in like the early 90s of WCW or even better, the mid 80s of Crockett, that kind of team. They were a great tag team for sure. And it isn't relevant to 2005, but we should know if you've never seen the blow off match when they split up.
The Texas Death match. Yeah. They were saddled with one of the terrible Russo gimmick matches the month before, and they went into that rematch pretty motivated and had you've seen it, Joe. It's a hell of a time.
That's the one with the glass bottle, right?
Yeah, the blood everywhere. And Storm recently confirmed Russo actually felt so bad about the aforementioned blindfold match. He said to them, I will let you do whatever you want next month to make up for it. So even he knew he'd gone too
Wow.
far in that
Wow.
case. Yeah. If you've never seen that match, the Texas Death ones, you can leave the blindfold one. Go check that out. It's a classic. James Storm, I think, generally is a guy who unfortunately will probably be a little bit lost to time, but an incredibly gifted pro wrestler. Tremendous pick, Buster. I love it. AMW getting some love here. Your TNA pick on the board. Contrarian Alex, you got yourself another double pick, brother. Where are we going first?
Oh, shit. All right. So I kind of exhausted some resources there doing WWE single and then my singles male wrestler. So I'll bring the first female to the board here. My heart wanted to go with Lacey. I was a big Lacey fan.
Yeah.
But in terms of trying to win here, my Ring of Honor pick is going to go to Sarah Del Rey.
Very nice.
The women in Ring of Honor, Gabe was trying. It's so weird to say to his credit because this is a really, obviously a different subject back then. He really tried to sprinkle them in gradually as to not, because crowds back then were not as receptive to the idea. Yeah. So there was a lot of dark matches, but they did. Sarah Del Rey specifically had a lot of shots in Ring of Honor that year. And I can't say 05 was her definitive year, but anyone who's familiar with her work knows how good she was. And so I will proudly welcome Sarah Del Rey to the team.
Can Buster, have you got cage match handy? Can we fact check Sarah Del Rey? Because I'm scared she didn't wrestle as much in Ring of Honor as we're thinking.
Let's look.
Because this could be spooky. I honestly don't know. I just want to fact check it now because then we can. Well, we're getting technical. She won't remember a lot, but I couldn't figure out. I didn't look, so I don't know.
In 2005, she worked Ring of Honor one time, and versus Lacey.
Okay,
Lacey. It was Lacey too, Alex.
Should have just taken Lacey. Shit, I thought she worked there more. Okay, folks,
so we have a flag on the play situation here, folks. We're going to figure this out. Alex, luckily, it's a double pick, so we can kind of work this out as a team here.
Okay.
Oh man, I already wrote her name down.
All right, so I'm going to take my women's pick off the board. It'll also satiate my Ring of Honor checkbox. It was a different year for women's wrestling. We talked about. She just returned last night. Asuka was well into her rookie year, and Manami Toyota was still wrestling overseas, over in Japan, and domestically. I was really trying to think of it. Gail Kim was gone. Trish was good when she was there, but she wasn't around that much in the year of 05. And as you mentioned, Knockouts division didn't exist. In my heart of hearts, it's just a sentimental pick. I have to take Lacey. One half of the Minnesota Home Wrecking Crew, possibly the greatest tag team name of all time.
That's fantastic.
And it was her, Allison Danger, Sarah Del Rey, but I'll take Lacey for my sentimental pick. And then for my tag team, which, Joe, I'm going to kind of bend your rules here a little bit, and I'm hoping you're going to let this stand, this decision here. My tag team, to qualify for international, these gentlemen had quite the 2005. It began in the World Wrestling Federation, in the midst of which they main evented ECW One Night Stand. They then went on an extensive tour of All Japan Pro Wrestling to wind up in Total Nonstop Action to round out their year. Say what you will, you would be right. The big white guy is a bit of a punchline these days, but in 2005, the Dudley Boys were a pretty hot commodity. So if you'll allow it, Joe, I'm going to take them as my international pick.
Here is why I'll allow it. Alex, if you have it in front of you there, can you please read to the masses the tag final they worked in All Japan that year? Because it is an extraordinary matchup on paper, if you will.
In 20 minutes and 23 seconds,
20 minutes,
Bubba Ray and Devon Dudley defeated Aki Bono and Keiji Muto.
For that alone. And also the fact that gave them fuel forever to talk about themselves like they're the Road Warriors in Japan.
Yeah.
I respect it. And I also think it's worth noting that, you said they started in the WWE, but it should be said. I mean, they really were completely absent from WWE and TV. So they do a spot in OVW, right? Like they're just waiting for their deals to be done. So no problem. I'm on board with this. I think that is a fair pick, and I think it's fun to get the Dudleys on the board in general. So,
and
There you go.
Not of international work. If you are truly motivated, you should look up the teams they worked in All Japan, because there's some real they work Nakajima and Sasaki in a tag match. But I just wanted to call out from TNA that year. It was the pay-per-view the day Eddie Guerrero died. But Rhino and the Dudleys wrestled America's Most Wanted and Jeff Jarrett in this like arena brawl that Dave in 05 gave 4 stars, which is tantamount now to like 6.5. So if you've never seen it, I recommend checking it out.
Indeed. All right, beautiful. I like that. I'm glad they got on the board, because they were actually like low-key kind of a big part of the year in a sort of strange way, because they were a huge get for TNA, dude.
Yeah.
Huge get for TNA.
Their premiere on Spike TV with the big closing was Team 3D debuted.
Yeah. Very, very nice. And they also, I just looked it up to make sure, in the midst of their first All Japan tour, they do a date in Wrestle 1 in which they wrestle Chuck Palumbo and Johnny Stamboli in Tokyo, Japan. Yeah, because they do a whole tour and then they do the tag league. And one of the matches in the tour you mentioned, like there's a bunch of stuff here, but D'Lo Brown and Jamal being Umaga. Like there's some really weird stuff that happened there. So
Kaz Hayashi and Kojima, they work.
Right. Bonkers.
Yeah. And this,
stuff.
If you need to cut this, you can. But they did the Hardcore Homecoming show where they wrestled Sabu and Terry Funk. And Terry, this was the last time Terry went for the moonsault. Have you ever seen that clip?
Yes, I have.
Terry tries an acai moonsault and just kind of falls backward.
Forever, brother. Forever. All right, so that means that Alex's final pick, which is his wild card in terms of where it comes from, it will be his match, which, it's still a lot of choices, right? A lot of choices on the board.
I've played it risky with this. I'm letting it ride. We'll see if it's still there when it comes back to me.
I like it. I like it a lot. Buster, what are you thinking, brother?
I'm going to take my women's pick here. I'm going to, again, follow in the footsteps of Alex and go international. I'm going to take Awesome Kong, who at this time is where it's like her notorious Japan run that is like, it had such a reverence in the States at the time. Now still, but especially at the time, she works Neo, All Japan Women, 0-1, Oz Academy, JWP, even stopping in Noah for a couple matches. She is a monster at this time. And the next year, I'm pretty sure that's the year she goes to TNA. I'm pretty sure it's 2006. And she's awesome. No pun intended. Yeah,
for sure. Manny, that would be Karma. You would know her as Karma.
There you go.
Of Royal Rumble fame.
Yeah.
So that leaves Buster with an angle to choose. Correct, Buster?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Very nice. I'm intrigued where you go with that. Manny, you still need your angle. You still need your women's wrestler. Which of those are you prioritizing here in round 4? Look at Manny's grin in my direction. I say women's wrestler. I know your game. Where you going, Buster?
I have to go.
Manny,
I'm going to go with the women's wrestler here. I'm going to use a wild card pick here. And
nope. No, you're not. Oh, wait,
it's his 4th round. Only the 5th round you can do the wild card.
Oh, my. Okay, so never mind.
He did tell us he was fucked. He did tell us that.
He did do that.
You can't really.
I was scrambling the last 10 minutes trying to figure out what's going to go next. Okay, so I guess I'll just use my TNA pick here now at 4, and I'm going to use the Abyss angle where he attacks Jeff Hardy and when he resigns with TNA.
Interesting. I didn't see that coming, Alex. Did you? That's pretty cool.
That's a deep cut. I don't know why I was thinking about that recently, but that was kind of shook things up because people now fixate on who's in the opening video package and everything, and Abyss was cut like from all of that. And so when he came back, deep cut, Manny, I respect it.
If you're a TNA fan at the time, you must be like waving the flag. You're like, oh fuck, man, we got Christian and Abyss got to stay. We got one up on the Fed on this one.
We won this hill, baby.
It's a great pick. And I think it's only right Abyss gets some love in this, right? That's
for
really
sure.
Strong. Yeah, I like that a lot.
A career year for him.
Career year. Absolutely. Spawn. All right. It's time for me to close out my draft, boys. I got a tag team to get. I got women's wrestler to get. I have a little bit of leeway with the Samoa Joe pick, but I think spiritually, when I think of 2005 Smoke, I think Ring of Honor. So spiritually, I would like to get some TNA here on the board for myself. With that in mind, I'm going to take the other half of the aforementioned Final Resolution match. Buster took AMW, which I think is the stronger team, so the more decorated team. I'm always happy to have Bobby Roode around. I'm always happy.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, give me Team Canada, Eric Young, Bobby Roode. Bobby Roode, I think, on the aforementioned, premier tag team wrestler list, I think of this generation, he's the 1 seed, right?
Yeah.
You've got Team Canada, you've got Beer Money, you got the Dirty Heels, the Dirty Dogs for that matter, you got the Gable team, which I think, ironically, in ring, that one, it may have been the one that had the highest ceiling. It just got very little chance to look at it, unfortunately, because 2019 WWE. But Bobby Roode, an incredible tag team wrestler, and I think Eric Young is one of the more consistent guys that has been, probably criminally underrated over time, and I think that will grow over the years. Alex, I know you're a big EY guy, fair to say, right?
Yeah, and you use the word. It's in a time where it doesn't seem like it's possible for anybody to be underrated in wrestling, just the way people talk about it. Eric Young is truly. I'm not saying he could have been 83 Ric Flair at any point in his career, but he has been consistent and is someone you can always rely on to have a good match, and has been put in many different iterations, be it comedic or insane homeless person, and he still pulled it off.
Indeed. And for my final pick, my women's wrestler in 2005, I'm going to show some love to, frankly, in the States, Shimmer is pretty much a one promotion army, if we're being honest, right? I mean, really, in the grand scheme of things. When I think of this time in the States with women's wrestling, I think Sarah Del Rey, you absolutely go to. I think Lacey, Mercedes Martinez is who I think of personally. And I think I'm really glad she's got some national notoriety in the last decade. I do wish you could adjust the timeline. Yeah. I imagine what a 2005 Mercedes Martinez could do if she was having matches on Collision like she was, a couple years ago, or whatever it may be. Rough, tough, aggressive, ass kicker. Like, she was awesome, dude. I think, the last few times I saw her, she still was really, really good. Don't get me wrong, but she's someone whose prime was too soon and was, she was ahead of her time, really, right? I think stylistically the game didn't know what they had with her. So Mercedes Martinez is someone, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert of her 2005 in particular, because a lot of that stuff, because it isn't like documented by a major promotion, it does kind of blend a lot of it. But Mercedes Martinez was and is awesome. And I think it only makes sense to show her some love here, because she is someone who I definitely think, deserved better from the industry, quite frankly. But awesome pro wrestler for sure.
I believe 05 was the year Shimmer started, and it's certainly something that over the decade that followed was truly a turning point, catalyst, whatever phrase you want to use.
I agree. And I don't think that's probably something that even people realize now.
Yeah.
It was really important, dude. For sure. Okay, so my lineup, I got Samoa Joe, I've got Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio as my angle, Quada and Kojima as my match, Team Canada as my tag team, Mercedes Martinez my women's wrestler. Manny, it's time for you to pick your women's wrestler. Go for it, Manny.
Yeah, I'm going to use my wild card, and I'm going to go head back to the Fed, and I will be drafting Lita.
2005, an interesting year for Lita, fair to say. Now, I don't know if that necessarily related to like bell-to-bell action, but in terms of relevance, we'll use that word. I mean, she's like one of the main people in the industry that year, so like, I don't think you can really knock the pick, to be honest with you. She's certainly all over the TV, Buster.
Yep, she definitely is. Funnily enough, that whole story is one of the angles I was going to take, but luckily, none of that. It didn't get desperate enough for that.
Talking on screen here, one of the main stories, 2005, Matt returning to WWE and going off the Edge and all.
Wait, is that the same year?
It's the same year. Yes,
okay, I'm not gonna lie. I just typed in women's roster for WWE in 05. Alita's name popped up first, so I just.
Well, you've given me a task to navigate this, and I'm trying my best. In all seriousness, none of that shit's any of our business. Here's what I do know. It was crazy how fucking awesome she was as a heel and how much she added to Edge's act. Dude, she transformed Edge as like an emerging main event star. She accelerated that whole thing, genuinely. So, the rest of it, it's fucking, who cares, right?
Made him quasi-interesting.
It's, but, she was fucking awesome as a character that year. Like, obviously, some of it you look back on very differently now because her retelling of her experiences of it is pretty brutal. But she was awesome.
That's the only other time she's a heel other than the ECW, right?
Yeah.
She's awesome.
I mean, there's no way I say it without highlighting kind of the negatives, but she had insane heat. Like she was the heat of the act, really, right? Because I think people felt never mind.
My 5 are Kobashi versus Saki, Kurt Angle, Jack Evans and Roddy, The Abyss resigns with TNA, and Lito.
All right, Buster, take it home, mate. You got yourself an Angle to pick here, and one of the big candidates has just been taken inadvertently by Manny. It must be said.
I'm interested to see if this will stand. Double dipping into the World Wrestling Federation. I want to take the entirety of WWE versus ECW one night stand. That angle. If I must, I will simply take everything with Stone Cold Steve Austin. Does that stand?
So here's what I'd say for that. When you think about what's been picked, Awesome and Tanaka were not in the angles, right? Maybe Tanaka was, maybe.
If he was, he certainly didn't do a lot.
The Dudleys, like, they were in. I think the angle truly is Paul Lee and Bischoff and Vince, to be honest with you.
Yeah, Tanaka and Awesome don't come out at the end of the show.
Yeah, I'm sure Tanaka's.
I think,
already back
to put it broadly, the ECW crew versus the Crusaders. Look, obviously that includes, guys that have come up, but like, think how many guys are involved. It's inevitably going to.
Yeah, that was my fear.
I think it should stand. If the boys have any issue with that, we can debate. But to me, it's about Paul Lee and Bischoff. So.
Yeah, picking you Angle.
Tremendous. Now, out of interest, just what would have been your backup if I said no there? And I'm letting it stand.
Let me look at my list. It would have had to have been Matt Hardy and Edge. Because all my other angles were taken. I had Ray and Eddie and Batista and Triple H.
You're in deep trouble. Trouble.
Yeah,
right.
I needed that.
We'll talk some of the alternatives maybe
in a
moment.
Fucking Manny took Lita, so I would have been fucked.
You were in trouble, bro. It was over. Yeah. You get kicked out of the street.
I would have had to take fucking Chris Jericho and John Cena. That shit sucks.
I think it's something that should be there, and to me it stands. I'm with it. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So my picks are Masato Tanaka versus Mike Awesome, CM Punk, America's Most Wanted, Awesome Kong, and WWE versus ECW at One Night Stand.
Alex, take it home, brother. Your match for 2005. You've been living dangerously, but based on your facial expression right now, you've made it through. What you got?
If Manny fucked this up for me, because now I'm going to have to rest on the mercy of the court here. I was going to go with Matt Hardy and Edge, the cage match from Unforgiven in 2005. Can I still take that?
That counts, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you're good.
Dude, when he started taking it and then fucking Buster was talking about it, that was going to be my angle. I was like, you motherfucker. I had this all plotted out from the jump. To me, easily the best singles match either of these guys had, and I wish I had my brother Oracle with me right now because he's with me in considering this a potentially top 50 WWF match of all time. It is from Unforgiven 2005. It is the cage match, the blow off between Matt Hardy and Edge. And as we were just, jesting about a few moments earlier, say what you will about that storyline, if it was real, if it was a work or a shoot, brother. And the execution of it was questionable at best. But that match is incredible. It is the WWF match of 2005. It to me is a match that I don't think enough people have seen. It's got the blood, it's got the drama, and it's even got the big stuff off the cage and whatnot. It's a perfect professional wrestling match, and I knew Samoa Joe was going to go first, so that immediately took a lot off my plate. So I had a few backups in the reserve, but I'm glad I was able to pull this one off.
Matt Hardy was a great pro wrestler, and I think that gets lost in a lot of other things.
Yeah.
This being one of them, frankly. But yeah, he was a great pro wrestler, man. He really was.
He's also
right. Yes, mate.
Hot take. At this point in his life, he's pretty hot. I'm not gonna lie.
Wow.
Yeah,
Manny.
He's
I don't know. I got to look at the tape, man. I haven't seen him. haven't seen him since he always got killed on Dynamite.
Melding two of my picks also, when Matt Hardy had his brief run outside of the WWE during 2005, he did a few of those Ring of Honor shots. Put over Roderick Strong, which I remember the crowd went apeshit for when Roddy won. But he had a match with AJ Styles in some, North South Carolina bumfuck promotion that it looked about 75 people were at, but they had a great match. If you ever, I think there's like a 4th generation copy of it on YouTube somewhere. You should check out.
Alex, what were your picks, mate?
All right, so for my angle / storyline, that was my WWE pick, which was the Triple H versus Batista feud. For my TNA pick, which was my male wrestler, Mr. TNA himself, AJ Styles. My Ring of Honor pick was my female wrestler, incomparable Lacey. And my international pick, thanks to some agreement from the board here, some furlough there, I was able to pull off the Dudley Boys / Team 3D for my tag team. And then my wild card ended up being my match, that being the Unforgiven 2005 cage match between Edge and Matt Hardy.
Beautiful. Okay, I want to dedicate a little time here. This doesn't have to be a long segment because we've already gone pretty long. Is there anything we should things that were left on? So, for example, Kenta. Kenta and Marufuji as a team, the Kenta key match that we talked about earlier.
They were. I tried looking at as tag. Right? No. Yeah. I tried looking up on cage match. I didn't see any of their matches on cage match for 05.
Oh, I'm pretty sure because the one with Segura and Kanemaru, I'm almost certain it's 05. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you look at those, they were trios. Like they were involved in. They weren't the official team yet. There's other people involved in those matches.
I was wrong, but you're confident. It scares me.
So,
by the way, James Gibson, Alex.
Kenta, James Gibson.
Yep.
Bryan Danielson was not mentioned once.
Whoa, that was kind of crazy.
Holy shit!
I had him circled to make sure that I did not pick him.
Yeah,
because I was trying my best not to involve Bryan in most of the stuff that I do.
We should also show some love to JBL and Cena's bloodbath too.
Shout out JBL and Big Show in the steel cage barbed wire match.
If you want, yeah. Alex, what was you going to say?
My angle, my 2 seed was Danielson's Ring of Honor title run that started with the Homicide feud and then led into him winning the Ring of Honor title. Necro Butcher, we mentioned him, but I was kind of half expecting someone to take him as a pick. Mystico.
Yes. Someone, but Manny was fucking prime suspect.
I had Mystico and Ultimo Guerrero's match on my list. Yeah. I had Ultimo Guerrero written down, and I also had the Grand Prix for CMLL on my match list too, because that's when you get early Tanahashi make his. I think he's been in Arena Mexico before, but like he makes it known like he's like a heel in CMLL in that time. Which is
there's the Shelton Shawn Michaels match with the catch suit, the switching music with off the ropes. So that one.
For both Angle and match, the Kevin Steen Super Dragon match, the program qualified, with Steen showing up dressed as Super Dragon, and then finally the Guerrilla Warfare match. And then in 2025, I don't think this rivalry means any more to anyone else than me, but I had it ready to go if need be. The 2005 was when the Chris Hero Eddie Kingston feud kicked off.
Yeah, tremendous.
Also, 2005, Atlantis and El Hijo de Santo have an awesome match for a tournament semifinal. Also, and I think in December.
It's also the year Christian Cage leaves WWE for TNA.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The Bobby Roode match is fucking
also
awesome.
Brock Lesnar and New Japan fight over the championship.
What a year, huh?
Would have been a good angle to take.
I was really tempted. They don't really have any notable matches, but I was tempted to leave my tag team to last and just take Regal and Tajiri, because what an incredible, what a moment when they win the straps in Japan. That's to me, that's a great underrated WWE moment.
I will say,
a great wrestling year for sure.
A sleeper match of mine that happened in 05 was, I hope it's 05, is Necro Butcher and Bryan Danielson at PWG.
That was 06.
Ah, damn it.
I'm sorry, that was 07. Never mind.
Look at that shit, dude.
Oh my god.
That just rules. I believe that's PWI in like 06.
God, that
Badass.
backdrop driver he's giving him, that looks so awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe somebody in the comments can explain to me what happened to the JBL and a Big Show steel cage match, because I watched it again. Out of all the matches that I had written down, I said, you know, I'm going to watch this one match again. The only match I decided to rewatch, and I was still dumbfounded by the end of the match, where how JBL got out of the ring.
Doesn't he go through the ring?
Yeah, he gets chokeslammed through it
Yeah.
and then crawls out the bottom.
Oh, so that's how he did it.
So where's the confusion?
He's
Then he goes, yeah.
No, because the thing is, I just don't know how he did it. I just because on the video, it doesn't show you how he does it. They just say, "Oh God, JBL won the match."
Right.
I don't know. It's just I don't know. That just mind fucked me for like 2 hours. I mean, I guess
2 hours.
And on that note, folks,
My
it
God.
brings our 2005 Late Night Grin draft to a close.